record and it says,
It told me that just
Evie, is it record you, Evie?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Couple of announcements. I see Benny C is on. We've gotten confirmation from the Kate Palmer group with permission to go ahead and start working on putting that historical marker up in Jackson for the coal industry. So that's good news. Anything lately that you found out from them, Benny?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. No, I've got to get a form to the steward of the property, and I just haven't done that quite yet, but I'm getting real close. And then once he signs that, then we can go to the state and begin the process of actually getting the marker. I mean, getting the site declared a historical site.
Okay, sounds great.
So we're moving along. I'm just got a lot of things going on right now, but believe me, I'm going to be on it. So
Sure, absolutely.
it takes about a year. That's what the website says. So.
Right. Yeah, I know with the one for Douglas Houghton up in the UP, it took them a while. So, yeah.
Well,
okay.
That's me. Is there any way I can block my voice so you don't hear all this racket in the background?
Yeah, you can down at the bottom left, you can hit mute. The bottom left of your screen, you should see mute and start video. And if you click on that mute, then it'll just mute your microphone.
Okay, I'll try that.
Right. Okay, another announcement. My little note in the newsletter that went out with the mystery rock for this month. We had some good responses. Several of them were correct. But Chuck Graff and Rick McGregor came up with the correct answer within minutes of each other. So I gave them both a fabulous, fabulous prize. It was the Blarney Stone. So that was the mystery rock for this month. Another thing I want to keep you guys apprised of is we are planning on having a field trip to Hocking Hills in Ohio. That will be coming up in the next year. So stay tuned on the details about that. Okay, John, would you like to introduce our speaker, or would you like me to?
Go ahead. You should have her bio.
I do have her bio. So let me go over here. Our speaker for tonight is Evangelia Murgia. She is a graduate of Western Michigan University. She's a hydrogeologist and project manager for the survey, Michigan Geological Survey. Her work over the last 3 years has involved managing multi-phase projects, including, but not only dealing with Michigan's statewide water well database. She's been doing a bang-up job. We all are really happy to have her join the survey, and I will let Evie take it from there.
Well, thank you, Jenny, and excellent job on the pronunciation of my full name. Not many people get that one. It's, it's a mouthful of Italian, but you did good. So like Jenny said, I'm a hydrogeologist for the Michigan Geological Survey. There are a lot of new things as of recent for the survey. Maybe you guys have heard, but we got annual funding for the first time in about 30 years. And definitely have to give a shout out to John for that one. I just heard the other day that John's done maybe 150-ish presentations over the last year to try and secure that for us. And we do have it, and it's part of that development. There are a few new permanent hires to the survey, myself being one. So I'm definitely happy about that and thankful to be here. I have worked for the survey for the last few years. That was through both my undergrad and my graduate degree at Western Michigan University. And I'm mighty thankful for the permanent position, because as I was approaching graduation, I thought to myself, man, I don't want to leave. So I called John and said, is there any way we can make this work? And now here we are a few months later. So with that comes a good bit of expansion. So doing some things that we've done before, some circling back to things we haven't done in several years. And So with that annual funding, some of the main objectives are focused on mapping and resource evaluation. We have a new staff member joining us, or has joined us, that has focused in carbon capture and storage in Michigan, and high potential for that. So that's definitely one of the things that we're looking towards. And then public services. So that being both for professionals in environmental science, geology, hydrogeologists, geomorphologists. We want to be, of course, the hub for resources for Michigan geology. Now, it's not just for professionals, but for the general public as well. So how can we take that information that's useful to us as scientists, and then additionally make that pertinent and relevant to the general public? Why should they care? Why should they have access? Why should they be looking at us? And why should they be pushing for legislature to benefit them environmentally? Now, even though the funding is a new thing as of late, we've been working diligently in the past, and we have all of these things, a very long docket of things that we'd like to do and products that we'd like to put together. We have some things that are ready to go. And so that's what I want to share with you guys today, are some of the things that are available either today or will be in the very near future that could be useful to you. Those being our YouTube channel. We have a parcel viewer application and an interactive dashboard for our validated water well data across the entire state of Michigan. And then we have a recent endeavor, that being enhanced accessibility maps of state parks and recreation areas. So I want to start with the YouTube channel. This originally started as a way to train our remote staff. We have a lot of student staff members, usually around 30, working on a single project, which was the project that I manage. That being dealing with our state's water well database, or well logic. And when COVID hit, we very abruptly moved online, and we realized that it's a good way to save time and money to just go ahead and record ourselves training. And that way we can have people not only just watch it when they're coming in, but then have something to go back and review. And we found that that worked really well. As we got into this, our production value really started to increase. We started to have some fun with it. And we were adding in videos for things like background, meeting previous staff, some of our field trips and what we got out of that, and what students should be able to gain from that, those sorts of things. And so now that's gained some traction, we have that publicly available, and we've only recently made this publicly available, but some of those main ideas from the YouTube channel are to share information on Michigan resources, geoscience teaching resources specifically for early professionals in geoscience, and then updates of current ongoings or recent accomplishments of the survey. So starting with those Michigan resources, one of our most popular video right now, the one that's really been able to secure subscribers and viewers for us, is an introduction to Michigan geology. That is just a brief overview of the entirety of the Michigan geologic basin. Is maybe something that this crowd might be interested in as well. So if you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, I would urge you to go ahead and do that. We have a number of other videos. Our second most popular one is on Kalamazoo being the most extensive outwash plain in Michigan. And in that, we have some footage of students attending a field trip where they actually go to a gravel pit and take a close look at the sediment and classify that. So that's part of that video. And then we have a deep dive of water wells in Michigan. Now, Michigan, I believe, is the #1 state for number of privately owned household wells. Florida is up there as well. So we have a lot of specific guidelines and regulations as to our privately owned water wells. And this, of course, was originally made as a training video for our staff who review these water well logs to understand what's actually on the log, what that means, and then in turn be able to catch mistakes from that. But it's turned out to be a really useful tool that's been valued by drillers all over the state for training people for other programs and classes trying to introduce the idea of water well drilling. This covers not just methods and pieces and parts, but possible complications and effects of aging and common mistakes as well. So we have all of these things that give an overview, and then we have some water quality videos that are also specific to Michigan. So in those, we touch on some EPA regulations as well, but it's mainly focused on Eagle regulations. Then for geoscience teaching, this one's geared in a different direction. We have one on how groundwater flows. Again, this is another one that was originally part of the training for our student staff members that were working on reviewing water well data. So again, they can have a better understanding of what it is that they're actually looking at, and then a better chance of catching mistakes and being able to correct that. That one is focused, of course, on porosity and permeability. That's the main things that we care about there. Did want to add in that we have some porosity models that we are producing now. So if you guys haven't seen these before, we like to bring them along to quite a few different events. They're cores, they're Michigan cores that we've hooked a bike pump up to. You put them in a bucket of water, and then when you push on it, you get to feel the resistance and the difference in resistance between the 3 different cores and highly different porosity levels. And then the user gets to see the amount of bubbles that are coming out, or how easily and how much air can pass through that. So we do have those available. We're producing more of them, and we're going to have an accompanying video with that. So it could really be a standalone product for people to be able to use in the classroom or other setting, educational setting. We've also focused on some diversity and inclusion in geoscience, so some highlighting of Indigenous knowledge and that relevancy to environmental science, as well as some accomplished influential women in geoscience. So trying to highlight that this is not something that is so specific to any type of person, that it geology is something for everyone. And then as far as early professional goes, this is filling a gap that has always been there. As far as the accessible internet platforms go, this being YouTube, of course, is that there really aren't a lot of videos specifically for early professional geologists. There's not a lot of content on how to take field notes and take them well and take them in a way that can hold up in a legal scenario. For example, there's not a lot of content on how to use the public land survey system, very minimal on graphing geologic data in Excel, so on and so forth. So part of what we're trying to do is to make that more easily accessible to early professionals or graduate and undergraduate students. Again, something that originally started as training, we tweaked it a little bit, and now it's publicly available and ready for anyone to use. One of our most popular ones there is gamma ray log data graphing in Excel, and how to use the public land survey system. And Michigan's actually one of the best states for learning how to use the public land survey system. We're so flat, and we're set up in quite a nice grid that we don't have complications like RPENS or other meets and bounds or other systems. We have very minimal of that, maybe along some rivers. But for the most part, we're pretty well gridded. It's easy to learn the PLSS. We're pretty flat, so we don't have a ton of physical features where we're going to have boundaries drawn along that other than the shorelines. And so it's a great way to introduce that concept, not just to people who live in Michigan and people who will be using it in Michigan, but anywhere else, because it's a great starting point. We also have a deep dive into wireline logs. This is something that we looked at what was existing before, and there really wasn't anything that covered wireline logging methods to this extent. We go into detail with all sorts of different methods, and this was advised by local wireline logging company. So that would be the Mount Pleasant branch of, oh shoot, I'm blanking on it. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Jack, can you help me out?
Schlumberger.
It's not Schlumberger. It's the other big one. Something and something. It's right there. Anyways, it'll probably come back
Baker
to me.
Hughes.
Baker Hughes, thank you. That is the one. So this was supported by Baker Hughes. They did some explanation of a very specific method that they have copywritten or copyrighted, where they can use resistivity survey, where it's so detailed that they can actually see cross bedding within a couple inches outward of the borehole. And so this is one of our longer videos, but it gives a really strong introduction to that, which is something that, as someone who is a fairly recent graduate, I can say was never covered in any of my courses. We were introduced to the idea of gamma logs. We looked at a few of them, but as far as all of the other logs and all of them together and how they can support one another, that's nothing that was ever covered. And so this is a great supplementary tool for that. And then we have a bunch of videos that are specific to MGS, like a video where you get to meet John Yelich. What a nice picture of John there, don't you agree? So if you haven't met John, you can watch this video instead and get a good well-rounded view. This is actually more an overview of the triage project in history and how John secured that for the survey and what's that's led to. This is from a while ago, so it's a little outdated and doesn't talk about our annual funding at all, but again, it's something that was for the training and now we use it publicly. Then we have a series called In the Field with MGS, where we've made some short videos recapping the work that we've done in the field in the last couple of years, mostly with student staff support. So one that's the most popular, or has the most views, is one on bluff erosion, and that's a project that we worked on with the USGS using remote sensing to track bluff erosion along the Lake Michigan shoreline. We have a couple for coring and logging and some other things that we've done recently. So some recent ongoings. One of those gives a semi-virtual tour of the McGree facility as well. It covers the importance of core archival and logging. And then we have one on our MGS water well and parcel viewer, which I want to go into further detail with you guys here momentarily. Now, like I said, this gained traction rather quickly. It was only made publicly available somewhat recently with a little bit of tweaking to a lot of these videos that were originally just for training purposes. And we thought, well, this could be something nice for other people to be able to access. And with next to zero advertisement or marketing, we have about 450 subscribers, over 20,000 views. We're getting some good interaction and requests. And of course, with any gaining of popularity or trending on the internet, you're going to get some haters as well. One of my personal favorite comments so far was on our Michigan geology video. It's just somebody hates geology, but you know, all comment is good. Well, most all of them, because that's just another view for us and another interaction. And every time somebody interacts with it or leaves a comment, that pushes it to more people's recommended. So onto these products that are available. The main one that's been well established is our parcel viewer application. Now, this is something that most of our staff members use every single day and perform tens of thousands of searches on in the last year that we've had it available. This is something that is built from a number of data sets. So there's a national parcel data provider called Regrid. They use data mostly from the USPS for address data and property data, and they supplement that with some other sources. And maybe about a year and a half ago, we noticed that they had a program called Data with Purpose. We looked at some of the past works that they have done where they've donated to their parcel data in small amounts or in large amounts to different areas trying to develop for whatever reason, and that's not specific to environmental. However, the chair of this program is from Detroit, Michigan, and was really interested in the Flint water crisis. Now, of course, we don't really deal directly with that, but it was a great way for us to advocate for earning that data. So we applied to the program, went through a few rounds of interviews, and ended up securing the entire nationwide data set. So we only really needed Michigan, but they gave us all of the parcel data that they had and full access to it, full use of all of it. So that is the base of it. The nice part about this is that it's entirely uniform. Somebody's already done the work of going through it and making sure that it all functions the same. Previously, we were reliant on using county parcel viewers from the counties, which are highly variable in terms of quality, availability, and how they're set up. You know, they're often similar, but the data is different enough that it becomes really difficult to mass review that with other data sets or other counties. And so with this uniformity, we get some other benefits like being able to run scripts in ArcPython that can use the tax ID and the closest match address to do some of the validation work for us that was previously we were previously only able to do manually. And so the other data sets that are part of this are Bing building footprints. Not that long ago, Microsoft Bing made all of their building footprint data publicly available. We've also linked to BSNA tax records, and that's mainly for the state of Michigan, while we have the parcel data for more. Those are their main boundaries. And then this is hosted through Esri as a GIS web application. Now, it wouldn't be a water well viewer without water well data. So this is coupled and linked to WellLogic as well, which it updates on a 24-hour cycle, same as Eagle's water well viewer. The plus side of using this over the water well viewer is that we actually have parcel boundaries, PLSS lines, and of course the tax records and building footprints. So I'm going to spend a minute showing you guys this. So this is the parcel viewer application. You can search by address. It was running a little bit slow with when I was trying this earlier while I was broadcasting as well. But you can look at any specific area, shows city boundaries in pink. We have Portage here. So let's say, we're looking at some area in Vicksburg. We can zoom into any of these, and immediately what comes up are these parcel boundaries in yellow, as well as the building footprints. Those are going to be in purple. And then the parcel ID followed by the address listed for any of these. Now I have the hybrid imagery layer turned on for this right now, but we have a bunch of other base maps available. So whatever it is that you're needing for what you're doing, it's there. There's a very long list of options all through Esri. For layers, you can have all of them on all at once, but it loads faster and functions better if you only turn on the parts that you need. So for example, I'm in the Kalamazoo area. So for water wells, I'm going to turn on the layer for Southwest Michigan wells. And it looks like this area hasn't been entered too much, but if we come up here, we can see now all of these pale blue dots. Each of these represents a well. And so when you click on things to identify them, depending on what you click on, you will get different results. So clicking on these parcels will give you the parcel data. So it'll give you the address, the owner info, and some of the other parcel data. If it's available, it'll give you the year constructed. And then we can get the web link to the parcel, which takes us to BSNA online tax records, which sometimes has the year built as well. Now, if we click on the building instead of just the parcel, then we get the building data. For some of these, depending on where you're searching, it'll have the type of building, and you can get a centroid for the building easily using this. Then if we click on an actual well point, we have this linked both to the WellLogic record, which if you're logged in will take you straight to the modify screen, and the PDF that the original scan belongs to, which we'll go ahead and download to your computer. So it's a very easy way to just find what you need and get it right away, as well as make some direct comparisons. And one of the nice parts about having the building footprints on this is that depending on when the aerial images were taken, if they weren't taken in winter, so like these where we've got a lot of tree coverage, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to see where some sheds or smaller buildings might be. So that's where those building footprints really come in handy. And you can search by address, you can search by lat long. If you have a close address, it'll give you closest match as well. We have a measuring tool on here, so you can measure polygons or lines in whatever unit you need to measure it in. So this is a really versatile tool. It can be useful to not just us, which is why that we're wanting to share this with the public. So the second product I wanted to go over is our interactive dashboard. And what this does is share our validated well data. Now I've referred to this quite a few times already in this presentation, and what I'm referring to is what we call the triage project. To give you a little bit of background, this is a project that started a few years ago as a result of, in short, concerns with PFAS contamination. When this was becoming a really popular issue and the state was trying to do some additional investigation into this, they of course went to the water well data. When it came time to actually test and get some samples, they looked to the water well data, looked to the points, the locations, come to find out a lot of them weren't actually where the database said that they were. Some of them were off just by being a couple houses down. Some of them were in the wrong township. Some of them were in the wrong county. Some of them were in the middle of Lake Michigan. So it was a really variable degree of error. Further evaluation of that found out that there's actually quite a bit of error, not just in the locations, but many of the other fields that MGS and many other entities would consider absolutely essential for mapping and modeling and trying to get a good idea of what it is that we're actually looking at, because in any of these situations, your model is only going to be as good as the data that goes into it. So in order to get a good model and a good idea and a good assessment, we need to back up and look at the data and make sure that we're validating what's already there, as well as change the procedures for entering it. That way we don't end up with this situation duplicating down the line. So that's exactly what Triage Project is. It's effectively playing cleanup crew with the data. Now that project originally started with just looking at the locations. Like I said, we found later on that quite a few other things were wrong with it as well. So that became a review of several other fields for pre-existing records, and then full entry of a bunch of historical records that were set to the wayside and never entered. They were scanned, but they were just sitting there in the database. So for the last few years, we've been working through that to validate those locations, validate the other existing points, and then enter all the data that has yet to be entered and digitizing those historical records. What this interactive dashboard does is allow you to see the progress of that project. So anyone who's interested in working with WellLogic data and is familiar with the WellLogic database should be interested in this interactive dashboard so that they know that they're using the data that has been validated versus data that has not been validated. So again, I want to actually show you guys that one. Here we go. This is our interactive dashboard. The interactive dashboards are a relatively new function for Esri as is, so it's something that they're changing their availability on as well. So there may be some changes to this in the near future as Esri continues to add bells and whistles to it. What we have right now is the base version, and it gives a very clear visual as to what is validated versus what has not been validated. So This pulls directly from our internal records, all of our summary Excel spreadsheets, and updates monthly. So because of server limitations, we can only do that update monthly, but this is still a step up from, say, reaching out directly for like a quarterly review, and this is available anytime. In fact, the last update you can see in the upper right-hand corner here was March 8th, so today. The nice part about this is that one, green is good and red is bad. So in any view, and you can change your view as you change your view, the counts and numbers will update. And you can drag wherever you need to go. So this is an area near Battle Creek. So let's say I'm interested in this and I want to see, has this data been validated? So at a quick look, I can say, yeah, this area looks like it's pretty well okay. I can look at the summary here and say that what I'm looking at right now, let's go a bigger area here. So Fort Custer, maybe some of you guys are familiar with, we can see a full count. So 77% of all of the data in this entire map view that we can see was able to be validated, with about 1,700 of those being problem logs, which is going to be in these outer areas. And problem logs can be problem logs for a lot of different reasons. One of them being that if there's a lot of public wells, we don't touch those. We've been instructed by the state not to deal with those. So if we can't, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong or bad. It just means that we can't guarantee that it's correct. So all the green, we can guarantee that it's correct because we have reviewed it. Outside of that is any other case, which can be variable, are the red. So you can see a summary down here as well that's by larger area or county. One of the other nice features about this is that you can see for any map view area what the average change we had to make on the ones that we corrected was. So for this view, again, this entire view, we had to change the ones that we did have to change by about 540 feet. Now that's probably typical. We usually have to correct them between 500 and 800 feet. They're usually only a few properties off, but every once in a while, like I said, we might get one that's in the wrong county or in the middle of Lake Michigan. For this map area, the map view that we're currently looking at, the maximum change was about 1,600 feet. And then lastly, this is useful because you can actually download the validated data from it. So it's preset that you can draw a selected area on here. You can draw a circle if you're interested in a radius, or a rectangle if you're just wanting to do a township. You can also download directly by township, select your area. And now I have about 11,000 wells to download. And I can say, I just want to download the ones that I know are validated. And so this is great if you're wanting to make any maps or models off of the data and wanting to ensure that you are working with data that's already been reviewed. You don't have to do it on your own, which a lot of entities previous to the triage project were having to do and take the time. And especially when we're trying to respond to emergency type situations, this is something that becomes really useful to not just us, but other entities as well. So the last tool I want to go over is what we call the Enhanced Accessibility State Park Maps. This is something that we've started recently. Right now, it's just a pilot program, but we're hoping to make available in the very near future. As of right now, what I'm about to show you is just a web map. We're trying to develop into a web app through Esri, which basically just lets it be more interactive. Now, enhanced accessibility for this means that we're trying to take what's currently available from the DNR, which would be regular trail maps, with for some of them, not all of them, indication as to which trails are wheelchair accessible. And for some of them, what the difficulty level of the trails are. With these trail ratings for difficulty, that's based on a set criteria of the DNR, which it can be difficult to find, and it doesn't leave a lot of interpretation for the individual user to consider their own limitations or mobility issues. So that's the gap that we're trying to bridge with this product. So we have this for a few different state parks right now as part of the pilot program. The one I want to share with you guys today is the one for the Muskegon State Park. So hopefully some of you guys have been out to this one. And what we've done with this is taken the original park map that DNR provides, and we've geo-referenced it to LiDAR data. One of the things that we found interesting with one of the few that we've looked at so far is that the DNR trail park maps appear to be considerably off from what we can geo-reference or what it actually is. So if we zoom in here, you can see that a little bit better, that these green 3D trails are the ones that we've geo-referenced, so what we can actually see where the trails are, and then compared to what is on the DNR trail map. So, you know, maybe for most people, this isn't really an issue, but for people that are really needing to plan ahead, want to take advantage of these state parks, but have some kind of mobility issues, this is something that's going to be relevant to them. You know, one of the other features here that's particularly helpful to those with mobility issues is the surface slope. So in areas where we have a lot of dunes or other elevation changes, this is something where they can really look at where is the parking lot, what are the trails, and how much elevation change can I expect from these. Additionally, if there's some kind of emergency, this is a really easy way to see what's the most efficient route on foot, or what's the most energy efficient route on foot. What's going to be the safest route for me considering my own limitations. So what this does is allow the user to really think about how this is going to work for them personally, instead of just trying to get a generalized idea from somebody else. They can look at this and say, I am comfortable with this, or I'm not comfortable with that, or I know I can do this, or I can't do that. We have the contours here as well, excuse me, which can just give a further visual representation. Users can use this on their mobile as well using field maps. We've already tested this for the Muskegon State Park. So what that means, field maps is an Esri mobile feature where you can display this and then live track your GPS location to see exactly where you are relative to these trails that have been geo-referenced. So not only is this more accurate just for anyone in general, but particularly helpful for people with mobility issues and planning their park visits. Like I said, we've done this for a few different areas, but there's quite a few different directions to go with this from here. So we've been in contact with DNR Accessibility Advisory Council. And one of the things that we plan on doing or hope to do is to add feature layers for specific obstacles that could be of concern for people with mobility issues. So steps, cliff faces, nearest benches, for instance, all of those things that might be pertinent. We've also been in contact with the International Association for Geoscience Diversity on this and hoping to get their take. One thing that the DNR is looking for is for this to be something that is more accessible to those with visual impairments. And so the nice part about making this work with field maps is that if we can get it to work well with then screen recording software commonly used by people with vision impairments, is that it could basically do what your Google Maps does for you on the road, but for someone walking through the woods. Not exactly, you know, there's a 15-degree turn here and then a 20-degree turn here. You know, that would be too much, but it could say in 10, you're at marker 50 and 10 feet, you're approaching stairs with 8 steps, something like that, which can really change the level of independence that a person can have coming into these state parks. Another way that we can make this accessible for people with vision impairments is to take that topographic map and then make it into a hands-on model. And so the idea behind that is that we would have several of these that we've 3D printed and then molded, and then those molds would have different textures for different trails. So textures, a base texture for a trail, and then maybe a different texture for wheelchair accessible trails, a lot of those other notable features, like I mentioned, staircases for sure, steep inclines or declines, any other potential obstacles, restrooms, at benches, scenic overlooks, things like that. And then a physical texture for "You Are Here" markers, and then have several of those posted at trailheads or at the welcome center of some of the more popular state parks. Another part of this is that it could be paired with an audio by adding in Braille for a scan for a QR code, and then a textured square around the QR code for the user to scan on their phone, and then have a paired audio with it that can give them some background on the map, how to use it, where to start with it, and where they are relative to the station that they're at that moment that they're feeling the map, and then even lead them to using the field maps. Right now, the limitations of field maps are that, one, you have to have an Esri account to use it. You have to go ahead and download the app. And so there are some limitations with it. It requires someone to be familiar with Esri, and to have an Esri account, you're probably somebody working with GIS. So that can be something that can really make this more accessible for geoscience professionals with certain physical limitations or visual impairments. As for the general public, that would need to be something that would be a separate application for, or just have the audio for the hands-on model, rather than also linking to field maps. So a few things to note with all of the things I discussed is enhanced accessibility maps are a work in progress. We'd like to get some more funding behind it and get some endorsement from the DNR and the AIGD, and maybe work with some folks over in the College of Health and Human Services at the university, and see how far we can take this and what more we can do with it. The parcel viewer and the interactive dashboard will be available on our website. However, with our new funding, we are redoing our website. So that is currently under construction. We're hoping to have that up and running maybe in the next month or so here. And then for any of these models, either the porosity and permeability models that we have now and we can put out for people, or those topographic models that we plan to have down the line here, would have to be something that you have to contact MGS directly for. And so I'm putting this QR code up here. This will take you to a link tree. That link tree has links for all of our profiles. So the YouTube channel, our LinkedIn, our website or our webpage through Western Michigan University, and our Facebook. So if you want, you can go ahead and hold your phone directly up to the screen, and that should pull up that link tree for you. Again, my name is Evangelia. You can call me Evie. My email's up there, so you guys can feel free to reach out to me about any of these resources at any point in time. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have now as well.
Thanks, Evie. That was great. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Evie, can you tell the people how they may be able to get Parcel Viewer sometime in the future, how it may happen?
Yeah, so that if you would like it today, I can send you the link for it. It's accessible. But the easy way to access it is going to be when we have our new website up and running, and that will be directly featured under our resources tab.
Thank you.
And of course, we have a YouTube video on how to instruct you how to use it as well. So we'll have the YouTube video paired with the link to it. And that YouTube video, again, that's accessible right now. The actual parcel viewer is accessible right now. So if anybody would like to use it today, feel free to email me and I will send you both of those things directly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say I am gobsmacked. This is so amazing. I used to catalog maps and, all over the thing, and to do what you've done and make this accessible to everybody. Wowie zowie. I feel like a dinosaur, but it's great work. And I thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we're definitely happy to do it.
Diana, thank you. We know your position that you had. I know what you had to go through.
Have you gotten any funding from the Michigan tourist industry associations, Pure Michigan, any of that? Because obviously we're focusing on, making our great state accessible. It seems like they should be able to provide some funding. Any interaction with those folks?
Well, not yet. And that's a great recommendation. In fact, I'm writing that down as we speak. So thank you for mentioning that, Chris. Like I said, this started as a pilot program. In fact, it was just supposed to be like a visual aid in the beginning. And like some of the other things we've worked on, it starts one place and then you take it and run with it. So that's a great idea. I will definitely look into that.
And isn't Tim Allen a Western grad like myself and yourself? So not that you could get Tim Allen to voice it for you, but
yeah, Tim Allen and Terry Crews, I'll get them both on a commercial.
Go Broncos.
Pure Michigan. Yeah, go Broncos indeed. Okay, well, if that's it as far as questions go, if you guys, check these things out. And then if you think of questions as you're going through it or you're watching some of our videos, like I said, reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to help with whatever I can. And we're definitely welcome to suggestions that any of you guys might have with this as we enter this new chapter of some rapid growth.
I'd like
Awesome.
this is John Yelich. I'd like to make another comment is that the work that Evie and the group have done was done for our training program, but it's turned into possibly something else. And we've talked with some people in the departments within the state so that they may do videos, YouTube videos for them for some of the things that they want to get out to the public too. So what we hope, and this is for Chris, and I think John Esch is on the phone too here. So we're just trying to reach out to see how we may be able to provide this so that it becomes a win-win of information that people can access and having people do it. So I don't know whether or not you want to show just a couple minutes of one of the videos and that you think would be appropriate, Evie. This is kind of cold call, but can you think of one that you can just show a couple minute of video?
Well, sure. I probably have to go with our most popular one, which is Introduction to Michigan Geology, which I think this group will probably like. 1 second here, I'll pull it up. Let's see. Now, I don't use Zoom that often, so we'll see if it wants to share the audio or not. I might have to reshare here. Okay. Can you guys hear it?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's something we have to do on our end on the
Yeah, I
host
cannot hear it.
to share the audio.
Oh, really? Okay. I did just
think
hit.
so. Oh, I hear it but it's faint.
Oh, okay. I thought I did something.
By a thick sequence of Paleozoic sediment.
Let's see. Did that help?
That helped a little bit. Is that as loud as you can make it?
Was near the
No, we
equator
can go.
and was
We can go a
covered by
little louder
shallow
here.
sea that dried
Louder.
up periodically. The basin is estimated to be about
That's it.
14,000 feet thick.
Is that too quiet still?
Much more recent, 3.5 billion
Well,
years.
we can hear it.
Okay. Let me get to the beginning here.
Geologic formations of Michigan span more than 3.5 billion years, from some of the oldest Precambrian rocks to unconsolidated drift left behind by the ice sheets of the Pleistocene. The oldest rocks in Michigan occur at or very near the surface in the western Upper Peninsula. These rocks can represent some of Earth's original continental crust. In the Lower Peninsula and eastern Upper Peninsula, these Precambrian rocks are buried by a thick sequence of Paleozoic sedimentary rocks that were deposited when the region that is now Michigan was near the equator and was covered by a shallow sea that dried up periodically. The basin is estimated to be about 14,000 feet thick. Much more recently, Michigan was covered by thick continental ice sheets that eroded the bedrock beneath them. As the ice sheets finally melted away completely from Michigan around 11,000 to 9,000 years ago, not only did they create the Great Lakes, but they left behind thick deposits of unconsolidated drift that still cover most of the state. This series on Michigan geology will explore how Michigan was formed, as well as topics like Michigan's mineral resources and geology tourism in the state. In this video, we'll introduce the basics of Michigan geology.
Precambrian rocks cover a majority portion of Earth's history. The depositional environment of these rocks varies over time with a combination of deformation, volcanism, and erosion. Uplift and erosion from mountain building led to formation of sedimentary rocks, while periods of volcanism coupled with heat and pressure of deformation events led to the formation of igneous and metamorphic rocks. Precambrian age rocks include various sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic rocks. Most organisms from this period were not preserved due to their soft bodies, but common fossils found are stromatolites and sponges. Notable resources in these rocks include many metals such as iron ore, copper, gold, nickel, and silver. Cambrian rocks were formed during a period of low-lying, stable continental platforms, shallowing oceans, and shallow seas that were spreading over the continents. At this time, Michigan was mostly covered by water, and this was the beginning of the formation of the Michigan Basin. Most rocks of Cambrian age are sedimentary, including shale, sandstone, and conglomerates. Arthropod diversity exploded during this period. Trilobites are one of the most common fossils from this time, but stromatolites are also commonly found. Notable resources found in these rocks is confined mostly to sandstone. Ordovician rocks formed much like the Cambrian rocks, with shallow seas covering continental shelves, but in this time, deepening marine sediments start to show up. These conditions led to greater diversification in marine invertebrates, with larger organisms such as nautiloids and starfish becoming common. Colonization of land happened towards the end of this period. Deepening waters led to the formation of more sedimentary rocks, including sandstone, dolomite, shale, and limestone. Common fossil organisms found in this time include brachiopods, trilobites, gastropods, and bivalves. Notable resources found in these rocks include limestone and dolomite, with burnt lime being used in steel, water treatment, and acid waste neutralization. Silurian rock formation is marked by the shrinking of seas towards the end of this period. Continental seas were receding because of uplift and mountain building, leading to erosion. High evaporation towards the end of this period led to salt deposits forming in the southern part of what is now the lower peninsula of Michigan. Common rocks from this period include limestone, dolomite, shale, and evaporites from the highly evaporative system. Certain marine organisms continued to diversify. Solitary and colonial coral fossils are commonly found in this period. Others include crinoids, trilobites, and inarticulate brachiopods. This was also when arachnids and jawed fish started to appear. Notable resources from this period include salts, limestone and dolomite, and oil and gas.
Devonian rocks were laid down during a period of fluctuating sea levels as Michigan was covered by a warm, shallow sea. This period was marked by an abundance of marine life, and fish experienced immense evolutionary development. On land, large tree-like plants and ferns flourished. Sediments from the Middle Devonian are primarily offshore limestones, many with well-developed coral reefs. During the Upper Devonian, black shales formed as silt and clay eroded from mountains in New England and settled in the shallow sea. Devonian outcrops are the most fossiliferous in Michigan and include fish, brachiopods, trilobites, cephalopods, and corals, including the hexagonaria coral that forms the Petoskey stone. Notable resources in these deposits include natural gas and limestone. The limestone quarry near Rogers City is the largest in the world. Mississippian rocks also formed in a marine environment, although probably a shallower sea than in the Devonian. Conditions were more arid, resulting in deposition of extensive gypsum beds. Retreating seas at the end of the Mississippian restricted the marine environment, reducing invertebrate populations and decimating the trilobites. Michigan's Mississippian rocks are primarily shales and sandstones with sediment from eastern, western, and northern sources at different times. The warm, shallow seas provided the perfect habitat for crinoids and blastoids. Notable resources from Mississippian deposits include gypsum, which is used in drywall and plaster and has been mined extensively near Grand Rapids, and groundwater. Many municipalities, including Kalamazoo and Battle Creek, draw from the Marshall Sandstone Aquifer. Seas retreated at the end of the Mississippian, leaving a small inland sea in the center of the basin and extensive deltas. Warm temperatures and increased rainfall during the Pennsylvanian turned these deltas into swamps with abundant plant life. Decaying plants formed thick deposits of peat, which over time were converted to coal. Sandstones from this period were deposited by rivers. Pennsylvanian deposits include sandstones and shales, as well as coal. A concentration of outcrops can be found along the Grand River near Grand Ledge. Leaves, stems, and roots are among the fossils that were preserved in the mud which turned to shale. The Pennsylvanian Saginaw Formation is a source of coal and shale. Grand Ledge has been home to a number of companies that mined shale to make bricks, tile, and pipes. During Jurassic times, Michigan had a mild and humid climate. Deposits from the Jurassic have only been found in subsurface samples of limited quality, but they have often been interpreted as lake deposits. There are no known outcrops of these Jurassic redbeds. The poorly consolidated shales and sandstones have only been found through drilling. These rocks were previously considered Pennsylvanian in age, but later classified as Jurassic based on pollen found in samples. The correct age is still debated. Jurassic rocks in Michigan are not a source of any economic products. They are known to contain gypsum, but the Jurassic strata are found in a relatively small area in the central to west central portion of the state and have been dissected and eroded extensively by glacial processes of the Pleistocene.
Pleistocene sediments formed when continental ice sheets moved over most of the northern hemisphere. The cyclical advancing and retreating of glaciers carved out bedrock and deposited sediments in its wake as the ice retreated. This was also when the Great Lakes were formed. These glacial deposits are found at the surface in most of Michigan. Over 99% of both peninsulas consists of unconsolidated sediments at the surface. These sediments mostly consist of Wisconsin deposits from the last glacial event, including moraines, till, drumlins, outwash, and more. Notable resources in these deposits include clay, sand, and gravel, peat, which is decomposing organic matter, and marl, a mixture of clay and calcite.
The Michigan region has a long and complex geologic history. With such diverse geology, Michigan is home to a number of areas of geologic interest, as well as a variety of natural resources that we rely on every day. Keep following this series to learn more about the geology of Michigan. What topics would you like to see covered? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to rock the subscribe button.
Thanks, Evie.
Yeah, no problem. So, as a group of Michigan Basin enthusiasts, what do you guys think?
It rocks.
That's good.
3 thumbs up.
Well, thank you.
Video is good, but is there any way to increase the volume? I could just hear it.
You know, probably, but that was max on my end. I'm not sure. I don't use Zoom that often, so I'd have to mess around with the settings a little bit. But you can watch it at whatever volume you need to directly on YouTube.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Evie. We really appreciate you taking the time tonight to get us up to speed on what you guys have been doing.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for having me. It's nice to be here.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you at next month's meeting.
Thank you for holding the meeting.
Sound good.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Thank you.
Nice job, Evie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.